Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Sistas in Crime with Shy and Toy. I'm Toy, short for Latoya.
And I'm Shy, and that's short for Shamia, aka if y'all want to call me ADA Taylor, whatever you want to call me,
Detective Taylor.
because I'm here to solve some crime. I'm here to solve crime and read y'all down. You hear me?
Because if we don't do nothing else, we gonna put two and two together and make four.
Make big change.
Period. Now listen. This week we decided to broaden our horizons. Okay, so we venturing outside of America.
Yeah.
We outside of America this year. We going international with it. Not this year, today. We going international with it. First up, what is this? No, it's not. I was gonna say the first episode we recorded in 2024, but it's not. But anyway, second episode of 2024, we're going international.
Right.
So, please get your passports. No children.
No.
There may be a slight trigger warning towards the middle end area.
Yes.
We may talk about some sensitive topics, so if I don't want to really give too much of it away, but if you don't think you're gonna be able to handle it, go ahead and exit off.
Yeah.
We don't want to offend nobody.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let my beautiful sister go ahead and jump right into it, and we're going to get this show on the road.
Okay, y'all. So this week we are covering the case of Miss Jollie Joseph. So y'all, currently there's a special on Netflix. It's called Korean Cyanide. It's a hit right now. So I know many of our watchers, if you love true crime, you have heard about it, because it is actually, I've watched it 2 times and it's just like it hits the same way all the time. But basically, this is a story about Jollie Joseph and how she is currently behind bars for killing 6 of her family members. That includes a friend and her child. Okay, so really, that's what my sister was talking about. Trigger warning. Murder in general. If that affects you, this not of course it might not be the video, and especially centered around kids. You might want to miss this one out, but y'all feel free. We got plenty of other videos you can watch that are lighthearted, like our Shy and Toy after show, that are lighthearted and stuff like that. So please tune in. So right now we're gonna get into the background of Miss Jollie Joseph, y'all. So Jollie grew up in a family full of farmers. So right away, Jollie, she didn't want to work. That's what her family said, that she didn't want to work. She wanted more. Like, she was kind of like flashy, and she was just like, she dreamed of being well off. So she met a gentleman by the name of Roy Thomas. Now, immediately Roy's family really didn't care for her and their relationship, because y'all, the gag was they were like long distance cousins. So that's nasty. Yeah. All right. They were like long distance cousins. Oh. And
incest.
Roy, yeah, it's giving incest. But Roy, he proclaimed his love. He said, I'm in love with this woman. I want to be with her. And I remember his dad, Tom, was like, I ain't with it, But he ended up getting married to her, and they ended up having a wedding and all that stuff. They said that Tom, Roy's father, he did not smile during the ceremony. He tried his best to avoid her the entire ceremony. I can't imagine how that went, right? So upon, getting married into this family, Jollie told her mother-in-law, which is Anna Mama Thomas, she told his mother, hey, I'm educated. I have a bachelor's in commerce. And she was like, with a woman of your education and your background, you shouldn't be idle at home. You should be at the university being like an instructor, because Roy's family, they were well off. They were educators. So, they were well respected in the community, because in this community, educators were very respected. If you worked at the university, you were just like high top tier, right? So, Jollie began to get irritated, which you're going to figure out why. But Jollie ended up getting pregnant, so her mother-in-law left it alone. So Jollie ended up having one son named Remo, and then another son named Reynolds. So Remo, he's actually on the documentary too. So he reported like early on, he remembers a very, very happy childhood. He remembered that, you know, they were a close knit family. They were a big family. They just really loved each other. But he just noticed, and it's crazy when a child notices it, but he just remembered as a child, they got, you know, it got to a point where it wasn't so happy and stuff. So next, we're going to get into the whole case. That's just a background of Miss Jollie. So now we're going to get into the case, y'all. This is a trip and this is a roller coaster. So brace yourself.
Buckle in, honey. It's gonna be hard.
So
in 2002, we're 5 years into Roy and Jollie's marriage. 2002, as my sister stated, Anna Ma Thomas was Jollie's mother-in-law. At the time, 2002, she's 57 years old. She was the matriarch of the family, so she took care of the family, took care of the home. She was a retired teacher. Now, as my sister stated, she was kind of pressuring Jollie to get a job, being that she had these certifications. She had a degree in commerce. She was qualified, and she felt like that a qualified, educated woman should not be solely consumed with housework. Now, when Jollie had her first son, Remo, she kind of dropped the issue for a while, but it eventually resurfaced because she's like, okay, you know, you've had the baby, you've had some time, you can still get a job, because she wanted her and Roy to be equals and for her to actually, for them to both have something. Now that, you know, you've had some time after you gave birth, I'll keep the baby and you can go to work. So,
and one thing I want to emphasize real quick, in their culture, that's rare to have a woman with that mindset or a family with that mindset. Usually they do want the woman to stay at home, take care of the home, have the children, you know, that sort of thing. So that, you know, for her to have that mindset, that was crazy. Like that, it was good to me.
I understand it because she was a woman who had certifications herself and she was a teacher herself. Like, there was one part in the Curry and Sinai Netflix documentary where they was like, you know, Renji, which is the daughter, Anima's daughter, was like, my mom had kind of taught everybody in the neighborhood. So the family was well respected. They were educators. So I can understand why she would think, you know, if you have these accolades, you should not just confine yourself to this house and not be doing anything with it. Right. So she brought the issue back up again, began pressuring Jollie again. Now, Jollie's father was scheduled to come visit Jollie. And she knew that when her daddy was coming, that Anima would talk to her daddy and they would end up having a conversation. And it's a possibility that her daddy would tell Anima, like, Jollie doesn't have these accolades. Jollie does not have a degree in commerce. I don't know about y'all parents. My parents ain't gonna lie for me. No. Not like that. They be like, oh, like, you know, they're very proud of everything I've accomplished, but if I lie about something saying I accomplished and they know I haven't, they're not gonna lie for me, you know. So she knew her daddy was not gonna condone her bullshit. So in 2002, all the family was together. They would gather at the house. This is the Potanaman. I may pronounce some of these names in this, and I do apologize, but the Potanaman family, however that is pronounced, their family home, which it was the father, Tom Thomas's home. And it's reported differently in a couple different places. So the majority of places report that Anima took a sip of water. Some places reported that she had mutton soup. So take that as you may. Anyway, she ingested some kind of liquid, whether it was soup or water, and she immediately began to feel uneasy and dizzy. She told her daughter Renji that she was dying. She was convulsing and having seizure-like movements, and she could not breathe. So they immediately called a doctor to the home. When the doctor gets there, he's like, you need to get her to the hospital as soon as possible. They rushed Anima to the hospital, but she died, and the doctors initially said it was from a heart attack. They didn't question it because Anima was already a little up in age. She already had some health issues and ailments going on. So no one questioned it and no postmortem was done. Now, at the time when Anima died, Jollie then assumed her position as matriarch of the family, and she became the most important person in the family. And with that, she wanted to be respected just the same way that Anima was respected. So she's kind of taking over her position or her role. Then I'm gonna let my sister get into the next part of this. So follow us now. Stay with us.
Right. So one thing that enraged me in this entire case was when Anima died, Jollie informed Renji, which was Anima's daughter. So that means it's Jollie's sister-in-law, which is her husband Roy's sister, of course, that Anima had put aside some money in her. She said in a her diary entry, she saw that her mother had put aside some money for her. And she said, you can have the money, you can take a few things, but that's it. I said, you wouldn't have told me what I can have. How is the daughter-in-law telling the sister-in-law what she can and can't have? Because see, right then and there, I would have turned her all ways. Like, I would have cut up on her and turned her everywhere but loose. Right. But anyway, so getting into Tom. So Tom, he was very upset, due to the loss of his wife so suddenly and everything. So Tom had went to visit Renji, which is his daughter, and he expressed that he was very upset. One of the reasons was, of course, he didn't like Jollie, and he, mentioned that there was a gentleman, which was a distant relative, M.S. Matthew. That's what they call him, M.S. Matthew. He had been visiting their home too often. So he was like, what is up with this? He would ask Jollie, what's up with this? Like, why is he visiting so much? And she would just beat around the bush. They noticed, like, she would go outside and take private phone calls and stuff. And, they were just very suspicious. So in 2008, Mr. Thomas, ended up collapsing. So instead of going to calling 911 and assisting, well, she called 911, but instead of assisting Tom with what he had going on, she immediately just went to the neighbor's house. Okay. All right. So she went to the neighbor's house. They called the EMS. Well, back up. They took him to the ER. The neighbor took her to the ER, and he passed away, which was very sad. So in this short time frame, they have lost both their parents. All right. So according to Renji, they said basically, she was a mess at Tom's funeral. You know how they say you could tell whoever did wrong by the person who's dead based off how they act at the funeral. And they said she was a mess. They said she was crying, screaming, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whatever. But anyway, so basically at this point, she had the whole house to herself because Tom is gone and Anima's gone. So through this whole thing, so now, of course, we have Mom is gone, Tom is gone. So what I found funny, there was a neighbor who did it, and she was like that. Jollie came to her and was saying, there's gonna be 3 deaths, and we're gonna have, it's a curse on this land. We're gonna have to, like, I guess, shut down the well and stuff. And the neighbor said, basically, in her, not in her words, but in my words, that girl crazy as hell. And she said, I didn't talk to her no more.
I went no contact. I said, baby, me and you on the same page. I would have went no contact too, because what? She said, how do you know these things, Jollie? And Jollie said, like, priests and elders had told her these things. She was like, I went no contact after that.
I want no parts of it. I found it hilarious. That whole thing, I found it hilarious.
I'm like, girl, let me tell you what my neighbor said.
They talk major trash. Right, but that was just eerie to her, which it would have been eerie to anybody. But because here's the thing, y'all, this house was, is beautiful. It was quite large, in a community. It was quite large, and they mentioned like this was Tom and Anima's dream house. So for her to saying there's this curse on this land, it was just like, girl, what? But next we're gonna get into more of Roy and Jollie's relationship. So now, like I said, Anima's passed away, and also Tom has passed away. So
okay. So a couple things I want to cover. So with Tom, he always took mushroom capsules for his health. So the night he passed away, just so happened that Jollie was the one that gave him his mushroom capsule. Now, also with Tom, as it was with Anima, there was no post-mortem conducted. This was not uncommon, especially in the Indian culture. We came to find out that post-mortems are considered a desecration, of the body. So it's not uncommon for them not to do post-mortems. If y'all want to know what a post-mortem is, it's just like an autopsy. That's it. So getting into Roy, after his father passed away, Jollie produces this document to Roy. Roy then shows his brother and sister. He showed Rojo and Renji. And it was a will, and a will from Tom Thomas, their father. Now, they immediately look at it and notice that the will is missing signatures, and it's missing, it wasn't notarized. It's missing the information it's supposed to have. But Renji, which I really F with Renji was like, keep this document. Keep it.
She did. She said,
a safe place.
Yeah. So, don't get rid of it.
Don't get rid of it. So Rojo, the brother, held on to it. Now in 2011, so this timeline getting shorter and shorter because we go starting out with Anima in 2002, then to Tom in 2008, and now 3 years later we have Roy in 2011. At the time, Roy was 40. Remember, this is Jollie's husband. His business was in trouble, so he was unemployed. He also, there's reports that he had issues with alcohol, so he was kind of becoming an alcoholic. At this time, Jollie was also going around telling people she was considering divorcing Roy for the simple fact that he wasn't taking good care of the family. Now, Roy's favorite meal was chickpea rice and curry. So there was one night that Jollie made chickpea rice and curry for Roy. And next thing you know, after eating it, he goes to the bathroom and he is found on the bathroom floor, foaming from the mouth and convulsing, just simply having seizure-like movements in the same fashion that his parents did. So they, of course, take him to the hospital and it was ruled that he had a heart attack. Now, that's what Jollie told them, okay? The maternal uncle, so this is Anima's brother, Matthew Manjadil, I think is how you say it. He pressed the issue in this instance to have a post-mortem because he felt something was wrong.
When they couldn't fathom a man so young, just like dropping dead of a heart attack.
He didn't question his sister and brother-in-law because they're up in age. But a 40-year-old just dropping dead like that and convulsing and foaming at the mouth, even 40, he was pretty healthy, and Roy was a handsome man, y'all. I ain't gonna hold you, okay?
He was handsome.
So when they completed the post-mortem, they found traces of cyanide. Now, Jollie immediately explained this and said, well, Roy must have committed suicide because he was having financial trouble, financial issues. He was an alcoholic. He's not able to provide for his family, and he owed people a lot of debt. So there was no investigation. Like, police authorities and the hospital just went with it. They took up word that he just committed suicide. They even had on the episode like a poison expert, and he said that in cases and instances where there is traces of cyanide, you first have to rule out homicide. Even if a family member of somebody tells you it's suicide, you have to always assume it's homicide until you rule that out. They neglected to do that because in their eyes, this is their family member. She has no reason to lie. She, if she said suicide. Okay. So basically she but at the time, even though she claimed that he owed all these people these debts, till this day no one ever came forward to collect on anything.
Right.
To this day.
Right.
Now, after Roy died, the brother Rojo went to go pay the property taxes or whatever on the house because it was still in his father's name. However, when he got there, the officials told him the house had been transferred to Jollie's name. Mm-hmm. So he asked to see a copy of the documentation showing this transfer. And when he saw it, it was the same exact will, except the will now had signatures. It had Tom's signature on it. Now, unless he came back from the dead, I don't know how he would have signed that document. So they were able to prove that she had, the papers were fraudulent. She had, forged signatures and things. Mm-hmm. So she apologized to the family. They did not sue her. They did not press the issue. They allowed her and her children to continue to live in home for the sake of the children, their nieces and nephews. So, and after that, now we're going to get into Matthew Mangiadale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing I want to note from my sister talking about Roy. So before her children even knew, they knew their father had went to the hospital, but they remember that their mom had flowers, candles, and a picture of their father, which typically something like that is only done when people are dead. Keep in mind, this man was at the hospital. He was not dead yet. Mm-hmm. So for her to already have that set up, her son recalled that he was he thought it was weird, right? Mm-hmm. So earlier, my sister mentioned Matthew, Uncle Matthew. That's what we're going to call him. They had an affectionate nickname for him, but I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. Mm-hmm. But Uncle Matthew, in the meantime, he called and got the postpartum report and, because he wanted to, look into Roy's death because he was very concerned. Mm-hmm. So Uncle Renji actually talked to Uncle Matthew talked to Renji, and he was just telling her, he was very close to her and he talked to her a lot, but Jollie knew that, so I think she, was kind of suspicious of it, but at the same time, he kept close contact with Jollie too. So, it's kind of like one of those things, you keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. I think it was kind of like one of those things. So he would frequently visit, I guess, to check on the home and I guess check on the kids and stuff like that. But basically, based on the autopsy that they did, the postmortem, they did find poisoning in Roy's autopsy. They did find poisoning. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, nothing was done with that yet. So one visit, I believe I can't remember the year. I'm sorry. I didn't note the year. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 2014. He visited Jollie at the home and he was upset because he found out that MS Matthew, don't get him, they have Uncle Matthew and then they have a man that Jollie's connected with named MS Matthew that we mentioned earlier. He found out that he found out that Jollie and MS Matthew were messing around. They were having an affair. So he had confronted her about that. So I guess Jollie did not like that. So Renji reports that Jollie called her between 5:30 and 6 to tell her, that Uncle Matthew had died. And she was like, what? I just spoke to him earlier this afternoon. Like, what do you mean? And y'all, it was under the same circumstances. He started shaking and convulsing after drinking some whiskey that Jollie had gave him. He started shaking and convulsing and all of that stuff, and he ended up passing away. So here we are at Anima, Tom, Roy, and Matthew.
Yeah. In a span of 12 years. We're up to 12 years now.
We're up to 12 years. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and we're not done, y'all. So things start to come to a head because we have had 4 deaths at this point in this family. What is going on? Mm-hmm. So next we're going to get into, the coming years and the other cases that transpired.
Okay. So also in 2014, because mind you, Jollie's husband is now deceased. So she now sets her eyes on another family member by the name of Shaju.
She loved to keep it in the family.
She loved to keep it in the family. He was like a distant cousin. He was more closely related to Uncle Matthew on that end. So just so you know, she would basically always tell everyone that Silly, who was Shaju's wife, you know, she was so lucky. Shaju takes such good care of her, you know, XYZ. And that so she now has locked her eyes and her claws in on Shaju. So in 2014, at a christening ceremony, there was little Alphine Shaju. This is trigger warning. This is a child. She was 2 years old. Alpine. I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm not sure if I am. Alpine. I'm not sure. But she was the daughter of Silly and Shaju. So at this christening ceremony, she began choking on food while her aunt was holding her. Quite naturally, they rushed her to the hospital. Unfortunately, she passed away en route to the hospital. And, you know, it was just kind of suspicious or mysterious that she has, again, convulsing like movements, the seizure like, you know, things going on. So that's a common theme with these. Now we're up to 5 deaths from 2002 to 2014. And Sha, I'm going to let you get into the next one.
Mm-hmm. So Silly, which was Alphine's mom, she was struggling, and of course we can't imagine, and we hope her child passes away, so she's very depressed. And Jollie and Silly actually become the best of friends, and Silly would confide in her and say, she was really depressed and she was struggling. So Jollie recommended a mushroom capsule that she said would improve her energy level and also improve her depression. So, if you recall, Mr. Tom took mushroom capsules too, and you remember what we talked about earlier, what happened with him. All right.
Right.
So she had convinced her to take the medication, and immediately, not the medication, the capsules, immediately, same reaction, convulsing and everything. Silly died right on the spot. So Shaju declined a postmortem. Now, some people speculate, well, they argue, did you decline it because of the cultural, not wanting to perform an autopsy because of the cultural aspect of it, or were you already messing with Jollie and you just looked at it as a way to, I got her out the way, right?
Yeah.
So shortly, after Silly passes away, Silly, they have her funeral, and they said that Jollie does everything. She, because in their culture it's very different. Like I don't think they embalm at all. I don't think they have the body just laying covered in flowers, and they have a ceremony and all that stuff. It's very different than what we do. Even though her family was present, Jollie did everything. So Renji, which was her sister-in-law, saw, her fixing the flowers, and she was just like catering and taking care of the body and everything. And she was like, she couldn't help but to notice Jollie's facial expression. She said Jollie had this facial expression of like joy and satisfaction. And y'all, there's a picture of Jollie and Silly's husband kissing Silly in her coffin, right? Which made me mad because, girl, how dare you? So, like my sister mentioned earlier, Jollie had her eyes set on Shaju. And before you know it, in 2017, Jollie and Shaju get married. Okay? Shady, listen. When I was
here,
right, the next year, like keep in mind, Silly died in 2016. They get married in 2017, right? And I remember her asking, Jollie's son asked, he shared that Jollie asked him, I got a marriage proposal from Shaju. I don't know what to say. Girl, you had this man picked out because you say he was financially stable. He was an educator. You wanted him. So, girl, you know what you're going to do. So they got married. So, of course, people like at that point, people are talking. So they're like, what the heck is going on with this woman? So, of course, they unite Shaju and Seeley had another son who was probably about the same age as Roy and Jollie's children. So they just became this united family. So next we're going to get into the evidence and basically, like my sister said, the takedown of everything.
Amen. So after all these suspicions and stuff coming about, Renji is, her spidey senses is tingling.
Mm-hmm.
So Renji teams up with her brother Rojo. These are Roy's siblings, his brother and sister, to obtain a copy of Roy's postmortem. And when they were reviewing the postmortem, it had Roy's death recorded down as 11:20 p.m. Now, this immediately shocked Renji because Renji recalled a conversation shortly after Roy passed away where she just randomly asked, like, what was the last thing Roy ate? And Jollie told Renji that Roy ate chickpea rice and curry, but it was in the afternoon, like around between 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So she realized, like, the last thing, the contents of Roy's stomach when they completed the postmortem contained chickpea rice and curry, and it had not been digested. So the thing with cyanide, because they did detect traces of cyanide. Yeah, get the red flags flowing all through this. With cyanide in large doses, in large quantities, once it's ingested, you kind of die almost immediately. You immediately start convulsing, foaming at the mouth, and then you pass away. So she knew that she was lying for the simple fact, had he eaten this food around 2 and 3, would have digested some, and it would not, those contents would not be full like they were in his stomach. So with this information, she went to authorities, specifically one by the name of KG Simon. And because now she's realizing that all this death and occurring in her family is not simply due to the misfortune, Jollie is killing everybody.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Anybody that's in her way, she's taking them out.
Mm-hmm.
From 2 all the way up to 60. Okay. Mm-hmm. So KG Simon, they start their investigation. And the first thing they do, remember, she's an educated woman. She works at NIT, which is a prestigious institution in the area. The area they're in is called Kudatai. So she was going to work every day at NIT. She wore her little ID badge around her neck on her little lanyard. She was even seen sometimes in the canteen at NIT. When the authorities reached out to NIT to confirm whether Jollie worked there, NIT said they have no record of anyone under that name or identity ever working with the institution, either full-time or even on a temporary basis.
Mm-hmm. Never.
So, where you been going every day?
Never.
Like, Jimmy, what you been? Because you leaving the house every day like you going to work, baby. Where's you going? Because
she was working all right. She was working on MS Matthew. That's what she was working on.
And NIT is the National Institute of Technology, y'all. But she wore that little lanyard, and people respected her because, like my sister said earlier, this area of the country is, they really respect educators. They thought she was a part-time professor at this university. Exactly. Well, where you going every day? But what's crazy is she actually sometimes was going to the campus and sitting in the canteen just, shooting the shit. Just, but you didn't work there.
Nope. You hate from outside the club and you can't even get in.
So I'm gonna get into this next part, and after this, I'm gonna let my sister wrap us on up. So not only that, as we said, Jollie had several certificates. She had a degree in commerce. She had all these accolades. Well, authorities found out that all of this was fake. So the reason being, Tom Thomas, who was her father-in-law, this her second victim, he he had been a teacher as well, but he retired from the education department and he opened up like a consultancy. So it was not uncommon for students to send him photocopies of their certifications and degrees and stuff. Jollie knew this, and she went through his files. She obtained the degrees that belonged to an Elizabeth Sebastian. Elizabeth, wherever you at, girl, I'm sorry you got thrown into this by simply getting your education on. So she obtained the records from Elizabeth Sebastian. She took Elizabeth's name and photo off of all of them and put her own on and put whatever remarks she wanted the record to reflect.
Right.
Now, my thing is, they showed these documents in the Netflix documentary. Me looking at that right off, I knew it was fake. Yeah. For the simple fact that in the top left-hand corner where her photo is supposed to be, it is off-center.
Yeah.
Real official documents don't make those kind of mistakes.
Right.
Like, you can tell she obviously photocopied this and put her picture on this diploma. Real legitimate documents do not reflect anything that's off center or that's not lined up. It's the same as making a fake ID, essentially. Like when they see that picture off center, fraud. Okay. And this wasn't that long ago. At this point, we're like in 2017, 2018-ish. So this was only about 5 years ago. So, you know, even though it's is this India? I think it's India. Even though it's India, you know, you still have technology and things like. Yeah. But the thing is, I think she never produced her diplomas and accolades to anybody. Like they just took her for her word because she always wore that ID around her neck, which was her biggest downfall. But I'll let my sister get into that.
So when basically Jollie caught wind that she was a fraud, she immediately discarded that ID. Okay. So
she was like, "It's gotta go."
Exactly. I don't know what she did with it. She was like, "Gotta go." So y'all, so Jollie ended up getting a notice from investigators, and this is crazy to me. She got a notice from investigators saying you are being investigated at the request of Renji and her husband for the deaths of 6 folk, the family members, including her friend and her baby, her friend's baby. All right. So Jollie had persuaded her son, Remo, to call Renji to say, please drop the case, you know, and my mom didn't do it. That's just to sum it up. And Renji, which was his aunt, said, I love you, but no. You don't even know the half of it, you know, so no, I'm not doing it. She said in a very stern voice, no, I'm not doing it, right? So one night, so in the process of all of this, they decided to exhume all of the bodies. So keep in mind, they have a postmortem, an autopsy for Roy, but none of the other people, because at this point, mom died in 2002. You know, dad died later. You know, and stuff. So it's been some time. So they exhumed the bodies, and this was just a no-no in their culture, in their community. Renji and her brother Rojo, like they caught extreme backlash. It drew a crowd of people. They were like basically threatening to break Rojo's legs and stuff like that. It was just real crazy stuff. Like they was wanting to do to these people to want to get to the bottom of what happened to their family members. So despite all the backlash, they proceeded with it anyway. And I said, girl, kudos to you. A lot of people would have folded under pressure because that's a lot to deal with. But she just had to be strong and just believe this ain't about me. This ain't about nobody. This is about getting justice for my family. Because at that point, she was confident this woman killed my family. So they exhumed the bodies. Now, keep in mind, I said they found traces, of course, in Roy. They also found traces in Silly. Because keep in mind, Silly, her death was more recent. So it was still in her body. But the other bodies, they did not find cyanide. But you got to keep in mind, these were murders in 2002, 2008. So there's a possibility. So at this point, it's probably not detectable.
Right.
But it is found in 2. So her son came to her one night because he was just fed up because it was a lot of pressure on him. He was like, Mom, basically, did you do this? And she was like, I have made some mistakes. So, he started asking her, like prying to her. And I can't remember what all he said she told him, but it was enough to prompt him to call his aunt Renji and say, Auntie, basically, he realized that my mom's guilty. She did everything they said she did.
She killed
So
it.
she
Took the
killed
whole family.
everybody, the whole family, like everybody. So Reggie advised him, she said, because it was like late at night. She advised him, son, don't eat anything in that house. I think she said stuff fabric in your mouth or whatever she said. She said, don't ingest anything. Just watch out. So while she's having this conversation, Jollie opens the door and her son Remo's like, why are you listening to my conversation? Like, what are you expecting to hear? So that's what prompted Renji to say, don't eat anything. Don't, because she didn't know what this woman killed a 2-year-old child. You're, as a mother, you're supposed to have this maternal, nurturing spirit about you. So that just lets you know this woman is absolutely crazy and insane for her to kill a 2-year-old child. Like, come on now. So if she's willing to kill a 2-year-old, it's not, out of the question for her to kill her own kids. I mean, let's just keep it real.
Mm-hmm.
So the question came, okay, well, Jollie, where did she get this cyanide? Because they meant you have to have a license to have cyanide. So MS Matthew, like we said earlier, the person she was having an affair with was actually a jewelry store employee, and of course a distant relative. He was actually a distant relative of Jollie as well. So they believe he's the one that provided cyanide because he had access to it. He had a friend who was like a goldsmith, and his name was Praji Kumar. So he was a goldsmith, and I didn't know this, but they use cyanide to clean jewelry and everything. So that's how she was able to have access to it. So, of course, Jollie's arrested. They're questioning everybody. They ended up questioning MS Matthew, and they also ended up questioning the goldsmith. And he was like, he had no clue that she was using the cyanide to kill people. She had said she was just using it to kill a stray dog. Mm-hmm. That's what she said. So, ding, 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 we have where she's getting it from. And they also, found, they searched the home and they actually found a bottle of the cyanide in the home. So, yes. So, we're here.
Yep.
And, so.
Let me just say that when all of this happened, when news reports were interviewing her, and they interviewed Shaju in 2019 initially, they would, say, no, it's a lie. It's just a dispute over property and things like that, which is another reason why people were attacking Rojo and Renji. So Shaju originally defended her. However, 2 years later in 2021, he did file for divorce. His child, the last child he had, which was, him and Silly, they had a son. He's trying to raise him out of media attention. He's trying to move on with his life, and I don't blame him.
I'm sorry, sis. You married your best friends, your wife's best friend, right?
I don't feel like this is an uncommon thing in that culture, though. That's the thing, because everybody else was acting like it was not a big deal.
He's in here like
not a big thing. Like,
yeah. I'm in my mind, I'm like, I would have turned her anyway, but lose. Like, I'm just
y'all would be haunting her from the grave.
Right.
They're not go nowhere near my man.
No.
Or my dear.
But I mean, obviously it wasn't. I mean, people don't like it, but I mean, she was dating long distance family members too, so I guess it wasn't no huge deal. So
I don't think it was a big deal, because we see a lot of times different cultures, they view things differently. It's okay to marry a long distance cousin or a cousin by marriage, or they don't view it that way. Now, I tell you, in the Black community, that's not common amongst us. We don't.
We will talk about you in the group chat.
We'll talk about you to your face.
Yeah,
because I've been in those situations where they be like, when they see both of y'all coming, now y'all cousins, and y'all know y'all cousins, and it's just a mess. Like I've witnessed it. It's happened before. I'm not, I ain't putting my family business out there, but you know what I mean. Like, it's frowned upon in the Black community, but some cultures it is acceptable. So we have to think, while Tom was against it, Anima was not. So, and they were not against Shaju getting married to Jollie. Like, this is just a cultural difference.
Yeah.
It's crazy as hell to me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, throughout all this, Jollie never once showed any remorse.
Yep.
She ended up, as my sister said, she confessed her crimes to her son, Remo, and she also confessed them to KG Simon. She confessed everything because the evidence was piling up against her. So they actually began the trial in March of 2023, and the trial is ongoing. So she has not been convicted as of yet. However, if she is charged and convicted, she could face up to life in prison or even death. This was very eye-opening to me for the simple fact that authorities and hospital professionals, medical professionals, all took this one woman's word off of it. Every time something happened, oh, it's a heart attack. And I forgot to even mention that even after Roy passed away and they found the cyanide and they ruled his death as a suicide, she was still telling people he died of a heart attack. It was not a heart attack. It was cyanide poisoning.
Just trying to control the narrative. That's all she was trying to do.
The narrative. But this lady, like they call it a Black Widow. Like, anyone that got into her way, she would take them out. Anima kept pressuring her to get a job. She didn't want to be exposed. Took her out. Tom Thomas found out about her affair with MS Matthew. Told her she needed to stop. Took him out. Roy wasn't working, wasn't providing, wasn't doing nothing for the family. She wanted to have a luxurious lifestyle. She wanted the house to herself. Took him out. Uncle Matthew, he found out about her affair, told her to stop. Took him out. Now, Silly, Alphine and Silly, she said her eyes on Shaju had to have them, and they was in the way. Because her kids was, older at this time. She didn't want to start over raising a 2-year-old.
Yeah. But do y'all see the common idea with all of this? They just didn't fit into her dream, like this, wealthy dream that she had. So she had to get rid of it. And that is so pathetic to me. Right. And I'm going to also add, Renji actually visited her in jail. And y'all, Renji said they had like 10 officers and women combined escorting this woman to meet with Renji. So Renji said, basically just approached her in person to say, hey, I don't think it's a good idea for you to call the kids anymore because, every time you call, it upsets them. I hear it in their voice, like, just don't. So Renji just got the courage. She was like, how do you feel about what you've done? And Jollie said, it just happened. That's all she said. She said, it just happened. She said, I have a mind of a criminal and I'm good at hiding things.
Right. But she did say, God forgives. And she said, yes, God does forgive. But to me, Renji was giving me that vibe like, God forgives, but bitch, I don't.
Yeah. She said, God will forgive everybody and then he'll forgive you, basically. Yeah. He'll forgive you once he forgive everybody else. So I was like, ooh.
So, not so jolly, Joseph.
Yep.
Murderer.
Yep.
This was interesting because this is not common, especially for this area. Like, it's a very beautiful place from what I've seen. Really quickly before we go, y'all, I just want to briefly, give these victims their space and their, screen time. So I'm going to show you how everyone looks. I did find a picture of all of them. So really quickly, I'm going to share my screen with y'all. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. This is Jolly Joseph. This is Uncle Matthew. This is Silly. This is little 2-year-old Alphine. Scroll down here. We have Tom Thomas. We have Anima Thomas. And then this is Roy. So they had a very beautiful family. And I really hate that she took all these people away for whatever reason, y'all. But prayers up to her sons, which, as my sister alluded to, are being raised by Renji. She raised them as her own. Prayers up to her sons. The oldest one made it clear he don't know who that woman is. That is not his mother. He don't have nothing to do with her. But let us know your thoughts, how you felt about this episode this week with Miss Jollie Joseph. Have you let us know what y'all thought about the documentary Curie and Cyanide, Jollie Joseph on Netflix, because I watched it 4 times.
It was incredible.
Hey, y'all, let me know what y'all think about that. If you haven't watched it, go watch it, and please report your thoughts back to this post. Please comment, like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube as well as Spotify, and we also have our pages up on TikTok and Instagram. So please follow us. Please leave a recommendation. You feel free to email us, SistasinCrimewithShiandToy at gmail.com. If you have a suggestion or a case that you would like us to cover, keep in mind we kind of record these in advance. So if you do send us a suggestion, it may not come out right that week, but we will get around to it if it's not something we've already covered.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add, Boo?
I don't, y'all. I enjoyed learning about this case. I enjoyed watching it. Like my sister said, please check it out, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in with us each and every week. Clips can be found on Instagram and TikTok. So, y'all, we're going to get out of here. Peace and blessings to all of y'all. Mwah. Bye.
Love